And we are live. Good morning, everybody from the shortcut. Thank you for joining us. Let's wait maybe a little bit till everyone finds our live. It's early morning, so let's give a couple of minutes to start. So today the topic will be about resilience, and we have a very special guest today, Lena Grenat, but I will introduce her a little bit later. In the beginning, a couple of words about the shortcut. If you're finding us for the first time, we are owned by the Startup Foundation, and we are an impact-driven nonprofit organization that is dedicated to career transformation in Finland. So we strive to help people find meaningful career here in Finland, whether it be employment or starting their own business. And we aim to bridge the gap between the job seekers and companies in Finland. And how we do that is by providing trainings and events like this one that can help you with your career search. Our topic today is resilience in your career, and our guest is Lena Grenat from SAM. SAM stands for Suomi-Amerikka Yhteistyösten Liitto. Pardon my Finnish, but Lena will tell you more about that. Good morning, Lena.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. So yeah, SAM is a grassroots organization, a platform for all people interested in the U.S. culture, politics, studies, work, society at large. We help Finnish students to get access to the U.S. universities, and we also offer summer jobs, and we organize cultural events across Finland, such as this weekend, Halloween events, and so on. I have been the executive director for SAM for 5 years now, been in Finland for 6 years in next month, I think, back from the US where I spent 20 years.
Yeah, so let's get cracking. And our first question is always, of course, about your background, about your career, and what brought you to your current position. So a little bit about your career journey.
Sure, I'm happy to tell my journey. And I was born and raised here in Helsinki, fifth generation Helsinki girl. And early in my career, as when I was still a student in college, a business college, I landed a summer job with Pan American Airlines. That tells you how old I am right there. Pan American at that time was the best known brand in the world, better known than Coca-Cola, for example. And so that was kind of a big deal. And why I tell that is that it was probably the best lesson for me to set for, we're talking today about resilience and careers, that you land a job at such a large organization. And then when I got my certificate from the school and I graduated, I landed the permanent job, and then they went bankrupt right there. And so that was a big news at that time. And the lesson for me was nothing lasts forever. And it was probably the best lesson that I could get at the 20-year-old. And I understand that there is no such a thing as a guaranteed job or guaranteed anything really in life. So Delta purchased the Pan Am routes to Europe, so I still had my job. I worked for Delta Airlines and in sales for some years. And then I started to realize that there were a lot of changes in the airline industry, and they started to outsource a lot of their funds, and started to look even more unstable, the whole industry, to me. And I was also losing a little bit of my interest in that field. And I was more interested, I'm a people person, and I thought, how can I increase my knowledge on just like the first while I was working. after 2 years in those studies, my then husband came to me and said he had a job offer to Seattle, Washington State. And so fast forward, we pack our bags and we moved to Seattle. At that time, we had 2 kids as well. So with 2 kids, we moved to Seattle, and I wanted to study social psychology there as well, but you probably know how expensive studying in the United States is, especially if you're not a so-called resident status. And in the beginning, I didn't have that. So that was out of the question for me. And I also didn't have a work permit in the beginning. So my job was, we purchased an old house and I started to renovate the house. And as I told you, I'm a city girl. I have barely ever even had a hammer in my hand, barely knew what is a hammer. So I renovated the whole house. I built, walls inside and sanded the floor and whatnot. Anyway, for a year, that was sort of my job. And actually, it was a really beneficial job because after 8 years, we sold the house. We got quite a bit more than what we purchased for. Anyway, I was getting a little frustrated at that time because I didn't really know who I was, because we're so focused on our career. As we meet people, people ask you, so what do you do? So when you're, and I wasn't comfortable at my situation, but I didn't have the work permit. So I was trying to figure out how can I increase my knowledge and not just renovate. So I ran into coaching, and this is early 2000, and coaching wasn't really a thing as it is right now. And so I studied coaching at the Coaches Training Institute then. And I didn't think that I will ever be a coach per se, but I wanted to increase my leadership skills, really. And then I finally got my work permit. And of course, I'm happy. Yes, now I can start my job search. And as you now know, my background is at the airline industry. And guess what? What was the time when I got my work permit? It was right after 9/11. So 9/11 and airlines, that's not a really good combination. So there I am in a new country. My background is with airlines and it's 9/11. So that was not a nice situation. So I was knocking on doors like crazy. I was trying everything. There's no time to tell me all these tricks that I tried to reach out for a job. Eventually, I landed with the job, and I really at that time started to focus on thinking, how do I tell my story? Because my resume was before that was focused on the industry, the airlines, and now I realize I can't focus on the industry. I have to focus on the skills. And I really wanted to learn more about leadership. That was my goal. And so I started to change my narrative, so to say, in more of the leadership. The story was more about the leadership and how team leading and whatnot. Then I was hired to run a call center in Seattle. And that was sort of how I felt that was the jump from the industry into more of the leadership role, and the coaching background at that point helped me a little bit on that as well. At that time, I had my residency as well, so I went back to the university, and there was no social psychology available, so I went to study business, and I graduated from the university with a business degree in the U.S. then. And so life was pretty good at that time in Seattle. I just graduated from the university. I was running a call center. Then my husband comes to me again and said, we're moving to Florida. I'm like, okay, right when everything is smooth. So we moved to Florida in late 2007. I was lucky enough that I had a project work offered to me in Florida that was supposed to last for 6 months. And so I thought I wasn't really excited about it, but I thought, well, again, I don't know anybody in Florida, so I should probably take it, because how do I know? I don't know anything, what's even there, what's available. So I took that, and it actually lasted then a little bit longer, maybe a year or year and a half. And then again, that project ended 2008, and every one of you know what happened in 2008. It was the financial crisis, the biggest financial crisis in our times. So I was new in Florida without a job again, and there was financial crisis. Everybody was shutting down. Nobody was hiring, nobody. And especially in Florida, where it hit really, really hard. So at that time, I knew that I have to do something really for myself. And so I started a coaching business. I already had enough experience with coaching at that time. And I thought I can help others who are in the same situation that I am, who have just lost their job and are struggling to find their way. So I put up a coaching business. And with that, I was reaching out to also some Finnish companies that were in Florida, such as Wärtsilä Kone. When I was talking with those companies, an idea came up, and there was a discussion about, well, they really kind of asked, is there a Finnish-American chamber in Florida? And I said, not to my knowledge. And because that came up, I thought, well, why don't we start one? And so I started with some of the executives at Wärtsilä Kone and the local honorary consul. So 4 of us, we started the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce. And I thought, this is brilliant, because, as I said, I didn't know anybody. You probably, I'm assuming in the audience, share this experience with me, how it is when you go to a new place and you know nobody. So for me, it was more of, this is brilliant. I can reach out to people. I can talk to people, knock on their doors and say, you want to join our chamber, and make a good network. And that's what I did. So I started recruiting members and so on, doing my coaching business on the side, of course. And then pretty quickly, I realized with the chamber that there was a need. As the word reads out to Finland, we started to get leads from the Finnish companies, and the chamber really couldn't do everything for the companies that they needed. We could just make introductions and so forth, but we couldn't really help in some of the business needs. So I talked about that with one sort of, I would call serial entrepreneur, a Finnish businessman. And we started another business, Optimus Consulting Company, where we helped Finnish businesses to the US market. So then under that job, of course, I was doing more and more work towards Finland, and I was making my connections back to Finland. Before that, I was there mostly working with the U.S. companies and in the U.S. And so during that time, then I was offered a project in Helsinki with the Chamber of Commerce, the Central Chamber of Commerce, for a couple of months in the spring of 2005, I think. And so I came to Finland. That was already fast forward almost 20 years in America. Came to Finland, and I was going through life changes in our family as well at the same time. And I was wondering, when I was in Finland for that spring, that how it would be to move back to Finland. And I had no idea even what businesses there were and what opportunities there might be, if any. And I set a goal for myself. The project lasted till June 15, and I put the deadline for my goal, and I said, if I don't have a permanent job offer by June 15, I won't stay. I'll go back to the US. And guess I have a job offer. And so then there I was sitting and thinking, okay, well, I guess it's Finland then. So I obviously went back to the US, sold the house and whatnot, and then came back. But how I got the job in Finland, obviously the advantage that I was sitting at the Chamber of Commerce office, so that was that opened up a lot of network, but it's not automatic. What I did was I asked from those people, I said, who should I meet? And my focus at that time was coaching, and I wasn't even sure if there's coaching done in Finland, but I thought I have to focus on something. And so I asked, who should I talk if I want to go into coaching in Finland or leadership coaching? And I got a couple of names. I reached out to them and I said, can we meet for coffee? Finns love to drink coffee, by the way. So I said, can we meet for coffee? And I would like to tell my story. And I kind of in the email told briefly that I've been away for 20 years and I'm just kind of looking what's here. I didn't ask for a job. Nobody ever said no to me for that meeting introduction. So I drank a lot of coffee that spring, had a lot of coffee meetings. And my goal was, I told my story really briefly, what I was looking. And then at the end of the meeting, I always asked, who should I meet? So I felt like I was successful if I got another 2 to 10 names that I was able to reach out. And I really was focusing on creating my network and not so much. I wasn't desperately looking for a job, but of course I was looking, but I was also trying to understand what's going on in Finland. What are the needs? Where I could be of use, if anywhere. So I was kind of trying to make a lay of the land, what's happening here, where I could be of use. That was my approach when I met people. But so that was my approach, and that eventually landed me a job, which is not the job where I'm right now. I was doing leadership coaching, as I said. But so that's briefly my struggles in my career, and I could tell a lot of stories, but I wanted to highlight on those sort of bigger struggles that there are. It's not only about what we do, but the world around us also changes, and some of the jobs that we start might not be there anymore 5 years from now. So it's a constant, this is why I love to start with the Pan Am story of even large, huge corporations that we think that are there forever disappear overnight. And so how do we bounce back from those? So that has been my story, always bouncing back.
Yeah, very inspiring. And I have a little bit of an echo. I don't know if this is better now. Yeah, and so this is a very inspiring story, and of course it shows a lot of resilience that we are going to talking about now. I guess brings us to our topic, so we know about resilience, but what is it in terms of career, like how it can be described when applied to career?
Okay, well, I will just tell briefly what resilience, or the 5 sort of top resilience characteristics are. So then we can see how it relates to career. There's 5 characteristics. There's positive, and under positive there's positive self-view, and then positive worldview. So that's number 1. Then there's focused, then there's flexible, And under flexible, there's flexible social and flexible thinking. And I go back into this a little bit more. And then there's organized, and then there's proactive. And it's really what this resilience thing is. It's really about energy and how we use our energy. So if you have these characteristics, for example, if you have a positive characteristics, you engage your energy in addressing challenges rather than retreating from them. And if you have the characteristics of focused, you direct your energy toward your most important goals rather than diffusing it across too many options. If you have these flexible characteristics, if that's your strength, then you open up a wide range of possibilities and resources rather than limiting yourself to the familiar. And in the flexible, as I said, there's a flexible social and flexible thinking. And the flexible social means that you know when and how to ask for help. We're not islands. We need others. We don't have all the resources always. So how to use others, how to reach out, how to ask for help. And flexible thinking means you can think both and terms and not either or. So that definitely helps in careers as well. If the organized characteristics, if that is your strength, you apply structure and discipline to generate effective approaches rather than working unsystematically. That's definitely a good skill set. And lastly, the fifth was proactive. And if that is your strength, then you experiment with actions in the face of uncertainty rather than you holding back until everything is clear. So you're not just waiting and waiting everything to be ready before you take the action. We have all of these characteristics. So don't tell me you don't have it. You have it, but the tendency is we have one typically that is stronger than other. You can be very organized, but not proactive, for example. And the goal is really to stretch your characteristics further so that you would have all of them. You might have the natural tendency to something, which is fine. If you're very flexible, very social, you're naturally lean into other people's help, and that's fine. But then you might have to strengthen some other characteristics to be even stronger when you face these diversities.
Yes, and naturally, these help with finding new career or moving to another country, right? So
Absolutely.
this is something you have experience with, and I think most of our audience, I myself also have an experience with. Yes, very interesting, and also I think that some people tend to be more naturally resilient and some less. And for those who are less, is it something that you can learn? And if yes, then how?
Yeah, absolutely. You can learn any of these skills. Every time we're trying to learn something new, the first thing is we have to be aware of our skills, what we have and what we don't, and what is it that we want to strengthen. So as I said, if some of these areas come naturally to you, then you don't have to work on that. But then I would challenge you to work on some of the other areas. And I think the most critical, in my view, is the number one that I mentioned first is the positive, which is the positive self-view and positive worldview as well. Without those, you tend to become stuck easily. We have to be able to see the opportunities, the world in a positive way, regardless of what the situation. As I told you, I was looking for a job right after 9/11 and during the financial crisis. Both of those times could be very, very depressing and discouraging. You still somehow have to pull it out from yourself, the positive worldview, and you tell yourself, I only need one job. I don't need all of the job. I only need one, and you have to believe in yourself. And and also the flexible thinking at that point, saying that, okay, it's not an ideal time. If I can get anything, then that's a good start. Forward. So all of these skills we can definitely practice. It's you know that you're practicing something when you're doing something that is uncomfortable to you. That's a good thing.
Leaving the comfort zone.
Then you're famous.
Yeah, I have a question in the chat, and actually it's about questions. So please post your questions in the chat. We will take them in a little while. So I have some questions prepared still for Lena, but please, by all means, ask your questions in the chat, and I will read them out a little bit later. Really, really glad that there are questions already. And another question that I would like to ask you is about your coaching experience. So that was like something that was quite new when you started to do it, and I imagine that you have had to a little bit form the methodology of the coaching while you were at it. And at what point did resilience enter your coaching set? Like, how did you realize that this is something that people need to learn?
Resilience actually came late in my coaching career as a terminology. I think it's been always there, but the term resilience coaching, I only got my certificate on resilience in 2015. Whereas I did my coach's certificate in 2000 already, so 15 years before. But regardless of having use the term resilience, it is part of coaching always, because as a coach, you're coaching someone who is trying to move forward. And moving forward, and if you're hiring a coach for that, you're going into an area typically that you're uncomfortable, sort of reaching out to the unknown, and that always takes resilience. That always takes these characteristics. So we're all building these characteristics every time we're jumping into the unknown. But where I would like to challenge myself and all of you is not getting comfortable on the strengths. So if you're uber positive, that's an awesome thing. I think I'm a pretty positive person as well, but maybe not the most organized or focused always. I'm kind of a scatterbrain, so I tend to have a million things going on at the same time. So for me, maybe the challenge where I have to always kind of gather myself is on the focus. Okay, so what's important today? So what do I have to do today in order to get wherever I'm trying to go?
Right. And then, so during your experience as a coach, do you have like any interesting stories or examples to share about resilience, or not realizing that resilience is something that is necessary, like maybe something other than your own story, but something else?
Yeah, I think coaching is such an interesting process because you never know where it takes you or your client. What I mean by that is sometimes I've coached people that come to me with a certain situation or challenge, and then at the end of the coaching we realized that that wasn't really even the issue. It was something underlying, something totally different. And because in coaching it's all about trust, and you're very vulnerable. It's a very trustworthy relationship, one-on-one coaching. And a coach is really reflecting back a lot of questions, and it's a lot of soul searching. So often happens that a client comes and say, I want to fix XYZ, and at the end of the session, we're somewhere totally different, meaning that we realize that issue that we thought is the issue isn't the issue. So I think that in coaching really is being vulnerable and then seeing where the opportunities are, being open. That's the flexible part, being open for something new. Maybe you didn't see something. Maybe the coach can reflect back on something by asking questions, and you're learning something new about yourself that you even had no idea. I don't know if that answers the question, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's with many things in life. Like, for example, it's the same with goals. Sometimes you set a goal and then you realize that just part of a bigger goal. So that rings very true. And then, so talking about resilience. So once the resilience has increased, what are effects of that? So you have a more positive view of yourself and the outside world. Like, what comes after it? Is there some magic that is happening after that? Or
I think there is. I think there is magic, and the magic always is, I would say, when you know yourself. The better you know yourself, meaning knowing your strength and your weaknesses, honestly knowing yourself, not trying to be something fake, so to say, but really knowing yourself, you also at that point learn to value yourself. When you value yourself, doesn't mean that you don't value others. You know what you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and that's when you can stand out. Because now you know who you are, what your value is, you can stand out. You know at that point how to tell your story. You understand how to connect with others. You know how to ask for help. Because when you know what you know and what you don't know, you know that, okay, this is an area I'm not strong. So in this area, maybe I have to reach out. And maybe I have to connect with people who are better than me in this area. I want to learn. So being vulnerable, knowing yourself, is also being vulnerable and being okay with that. And you also, as a resilient person, you see opportunities rather than problems. And that's a strength. That's a huge strength. And you can function systematically under pressure. And that if you know how to do that in this challenging times that we are, that's a pretty good situation. Right. The pressure doesn't kill you, but you know how to function under pressure. So yes, absolutely.
Right. So we have a little bit. I think I'm gonna take some questions from the chat already, because these, I think, are very on point. So Omar is asking, when you have coffee with business Finns, what was the most moment they started to engage with you and consider you to be an important part of their business? And also, were you speaking in Finnish with them? So I guess you were.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Omar. Good question. I think most of the contacts were in Finnish. There were a couple that were English speaking, but most were Finnish. The moment that I started to engage with you was the business was there all the time. But as I said, my approach, and I'm not saying this should be the approach for everybody, my approach, my real first focus was to understand what's going on in Finland. Because at that point, I had been away for 20 years. I didn't know what the needs were, what was valued, what was important, what wasn't important, what were the businesses thinking. So I wasn't so much directly selling myself. I was trying to figure out what are the needs, and then in my own head I was trying to figure out at the same time when they were talking about their business, their challenges, I was trying to figure out, where do I fit, or do I even fit in this society? I had no idea whether I would fit back in Finland. So that was really my focus, to try to understand what's going on. It was exactly the same when I was in Florida. The method wasn't the same. I wasn't drinking coffee, but I was knocking on the doors with this chamber. And the same was, I was reaching out to the businesses and I was talking to them, understanding, what are your needs? What are you looking? What would you like to change? This is my background. How can I help you? It was more of that. How can I be of assistance? Not really, do you have a job for me? That was my approach. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, very practical question. Thank you, Omar. Yes, and I wanted to ask also about, like, is there a strategy that you can follow to build resilience? Like, are there like concrete steps that you can say, like, okay, these are like 4 or 2 things that I can do to build up my resilience skills?
Well, if you're really interested, there are resilience training as well, courses that you can take, but just remember the 5 characteristics: the positive, focused, flexible, organized, and proactive. And I think you can practice this on your own, and but even better with somebody, with someone, so that you're being challenged, that somebody would hold you accountable for what your goal is. If you want to practice being organized, somebody has to kind of challenge you on that, if that's your thing. It's with any learning. I think it's the same. You have to be held accountable somehow. You can do that with your friend. You can do that with your colleague. You can say that, hey, I'm really working on being more flexible in my thinking, so challenge me if I don't, or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Very good tool. Like, once you announce it, you have to follow through, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. If you struggle with something, say it out loud. There's nothing shameful about it. If you're being negative, for example, and then you can say to your best friend, your husband, wife, you say, hey, every time I'm starting to get into this negative, just tell me something, and I snap out of it or whatnot.
Yeah, right. So your experience is very interesting, and I think very relevant for our community, because both you were an immigrant in another country and a returnee to your own country. And actually, we have some segment of our community that are returnee Finns, and they are like back here and looking back for their network that they have lost over the years. So what would be your advice specifically to them? Like, is there something special, some special advice to returnee Finns who are listening or will be maybe watching this video later?
Well, my advice is to use, if we're talking about this resilience, to use this the so flexible characteristics, which was what I used when I came back, meaning that I knew about 3 to 5 people in my business network in Finland. And I use them to max, meaning that if you know 3 people, you go to those 3 people and you ask from all of them, who should I meet? If they all give you 2 names, You already have 6. You go to those 6, you ask all of them, who should I meet? They give you 2. Maybe they give you 10. I don't know. Then you go on. That's how you build your network. And a network to me is not, you don't go to someone and it's not about me so much. It's a broader thing. You don't always instantly get an instant benefit, so to say. If you walk out and say, oh, well, they didn't have anything, no job, this is not, well, you just gained a person in your network. And that's valuable. Just that is valuable. You never know if you have a good impression. They go to somewhere and they talk about you, and you never know. So just to try to be of use at any moment when you're meeting any person, and building your network, I strongly believe in networks. I don't believe so much in my strength. I know my strength and my weaknesses. My strength is not on writing resumes, and there are better people in your broadcast to tell that. I'm more of a people person. I'm face-to-face person, and I know that. I know, and so I have to be able to get in front of the person, and because I know myself, I know what my strength and my weakness is. That's why I focus so strongly on those face-to-face meetings. But that's not for everybody. That works for me.
Right. And then oh, sorry, I have some. Yeah, no echo anymore. So also I wanted to ask about some resources, maybe about resilience, or if you still do the resilience coaching, like what can we look at after this broadcast ends, for those who think this topic is something they should double down on?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I still do sometimes resilient training. Actually, 2 weeks ago I did a resilience session, and or I can give other names who do that more frequently. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure you can give the contact information out, and you can find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, happy to help if you're interested in diving deeper.
Right. And then also we haven't had time to talk about your work at SAM. Actually, we only covered your career before that. So if maybe we would be interesting to listen a couple of words about SAM, what it's currently doing, what's the goal, and maybe if there's something there also for our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. So SAM, as I told, we're a grassroots organization based on our strength is on our volunteers. So we have about 40 chapters all around Finland, so not just in Helsinki. And all of those chapters are based on volunteers. And the chapters, what they do is they organize cultural events, like I mentioned, Halloween this weekend and whatnot. Here at our main office where I work, our focus is on Finnish students, really. We also have a foundation where we give scholarships for Finnish students who want to study in Ivy League universities, doing their master's or PhD. So we give scholarships for that. And then we also offer summer jobs in the last 2 years, how I do because of COVID, but getting back into that as well. We also are doing this year a leadership program for young professional leaders together with Cleveland Council of World Affairs, and it will be online version. I think 6 sessions, most likely in the fall. So if you want to develop your leadership skills, we have really good, interesting speakers for young professionals who want to increase their leadership skills. As you already know, the leadership is kind of my passion, and I think there's a lot that we can learn when we exchange cultures. And I know this is a culturally diverse group, and that's one of the areas that I really, really want to embrace, because my experience in the US was multicultural organizations that I was leading, and I think we can bring that type of leadership skills to Finland as well. We're still a little bit behind on that, I believe. So I'm happy to see Shortcuts and other organizations who are embracing that as well. But so we do our part, but you're welcome to join us. SAM is really a grassroots organization. We're sort of, I call us as a platform, a volunteer platform. People make it the way if you have an idea that you want to bring to this platform, talk to me and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, very interesting. Definitely follow Lena on LinkedIn after this, and Sam, of course. I have a question in the chat from Jessie. Jessie is our head of marketing here at The Shortcut, and also she's also a coach. So I guess that this is a coach-to-coach question. So Jessie is asking, what is one of the most impressive transformations you have seen with your one-on-one clients on how they became more resilient?
That's a good question. I have to go with my gut feeling, or the first thing that comes to my mind. I was coaching one, actually a Russian guy here in Finland, and the coaching was really about how to give and receive feedback. And he really struggled with that. He felt that receiving feedback was always a negative thing. Like there was always, it's like for him it was a you could tell from his body language that he kind of shut down almost when it was a question about feedback. And so when we talked about that, we realized that it was a cultural reaction, sort of, and to see how his eyes opened and he realized what the purpose of feedback was. And I think I used some kind of language, like I said, consider feedback as information, just information. Information never has a plus or minus. It's just information. It's just 1 is a 1, 2 is a 2. There's nothing more to that. And to see that relaxation, and I think in his career, it was actually quite significant. He called me afterwards, and because being able to take feedback is really critical in your career. Also, being able to give feedback in a constructive way is critical. So I think he will definitely be more resilient in his work with that sort of an aha moment. That's the next one example that came to my mind. Thanks, Jessie.
Yes, very interesting. And I think this is going to quotes from this speech. I'm already like making a mental list of quotes that we can publish later, talking about your speech. Yes, but I think we don't have any questions anymore. So the last 15 minutes are reserved for questions. And if we don't, then we want to thank Lena very much for spending this morning with us. Definitely follow her and Sam's accounts on LinkedIn and send requests and questions. And I think there's one more question from Julia. I'm going to show it. Julia is asking, interesting comment about receiving and giving feedback. In the beginning, you also spoke about selling. Do you have some tips on how to build resilience, for example, in sales?
Good. Resilience in sales. Well, that's definitely an area where you need resilience. We call those characteristics sort of resilience muscles. So you need to have all of that in sales. You definitely have to be organized. You have to be focused, flexible as well. I think they all are extremely important. You can't rely in sales just one. If you're just positive, that's not enough in sales. So definitely, that's a great question. I actually haven't thought about it as focusing on sales directly, but when I look at those characteristics, they really, really are needed in sales. Absolutely.
We had one training in our BYOB, Be Your Own Boss program, earlier this year, and we had, amongst other things, there was like a sales speaker person who was talking about sales, and his quote was something like, sales process is like constantly getting hit in the face and standing back after. So something like really, really strong.
Absolutely, and that's why the number one, the positive self view and the world view, you have to have that, because you're 1 out of 10 maybe you get a hit, and so you have to still walk out with a positive view. And sort of like I was meeting on the coffee, these people, I felt like a winner every time I walked out, even that I didn't have a job, because it wasn't always, it's not, when you go into sales, whether you're selling yourself as an employee, the experience already is a winning experience. And if you leave a good mark of yourself, even if it's not a sale per se instantly, if you leave a positive mark on your company of yourself, I think you're a winner. Say hello, hi, I'm good. You can just celebrate yourself and say, hi, I did it. I talked to these people, I reached out, I did my job. You don't always get the sale. Move on, next, and not getting stuck on, oh, what did I do wrong? Obviously, analyzing what was wrong, right, and what was good and what wasn't good is a good thing, but not to get stuck. Then next, move on, next.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julia.
Yeah, this is, I guess, like the essence of resilience. Like, keep at it. Like, stand up.
Keep moving, and celebrate yourself. Celebrate. Just be your own best coach. If nobody else is lifting you up, you do it.
Very good advice. And yeah, I think that we don't have more questions, and we are going to be wrapping up. We thank Lena very much, and this was very interesting. This video will be up on our YouTube and Facebook channels, and also on our website. So you can always go back to it and listen again if you want to learn more. Thank you very much, Lena, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks again at Online Breakfast, and we will be talking about interviews next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and have an awesome week, everybody.
Same. See you in our future events. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.